Don't start it. The voice was small enough to be swallowed by the hum of the lights, but it cut through the billion-dollar garage like a blade. Charles Whitmore's thumb stopped above the black ignition switch. A little black girl in a faded gray hoodie stood beside the open engine bay, her eyes fixed on one thin red wire. "That wire is wrong," she said. "If you turn it on, everybody will know." 43 minutes earlier, Maya Brooks had only come to Whitmore Motors to bring her mother's medicine. The paper pharmacy bag was still warm from being held too tightly against her chest, its corners soft from the mist outside. Detroit rain clung to her braids and dotted the shoulders of her hoodie as the security guard at the rear service entrance checked her visitor sticker twice, then looked at her shoes as if the torn rubber toe might leave a stain on the polished floor. Beyond the glass wall, the Whitmore Performance Lab glowed white and silver, all steel beams, camera rigs, silent investors, and the kind of clean concrete that looked too expensive to step on. Her mother, Tanya Brooks, was near the far end of the garage, pushing a yellow mop bucket with one hand and pressing the other against her lower back. Maya saw the way Tanya smiled at people who never looked down long enough to see her face. She saw the unpaid hours envelope folded inside her mother's apron pocket. She saw the tremble in Tanya's fingers when the head janitorial contractor walked past without speaking. On the main platform sat the Phantom X, a silver hypercar with its rear body panels lifted open like wings. Men in fitted suits stood around it with tablets and coffee cups. Engineers moved in careful circles, pretending not to be nervous. At the center of it all was Charles Whitmore, tall, pale, immaculate in a charcoal suit, with a watch worth more than every trailer on Maya Street. His company name was on the wall. His face was on the magazine covers framed beside the elevator. His signature was waiting on a $1.2 billion investment agreement lying open on a black glass table. But his eyes looked tired in a way money could not polish. When the engine coughed during the pre-demo test, the room tightened. A rough tremor passed through the car, quick and ugly, then disappeared. Victor Hale, the chief engineer, gave a smooth explanation about calibration drift. Charles did not smile. Then he noticed Maya standing near the service line, staring not at the car, not at the lights, but deep into the engine bay. "You," Charles said, half amused and half irritated. "You see something my engineers don't?" A few people turned. Tanya froze beside the mop bucket. Maya lowered the pharmacy bag. "Maybe," she said. Soft laughter moved through the room. Charles stepped closer, his mouth bending into the kind of smile people used when they wanted a crowd on their side. "Fix this engine, little girl, and I'll give you $5 million. The garage broke open with laughter. Someone behind him muttered that she probably thought a socket wrench was a toothbrush. Victor Hale smiled without showing his teeth. Tanya whispered, "Maya, baby, come here." But Maya did not move. Her eyes had narrowed on one place beneath the carbon black wiring harness, where a thin red wire curved too cleanly through the shadows. It was newer than the others. This tape was wrapped backward, and near the connector, no bigger than a fingernail, was a pale crescent mark burned into the plastic. The pale crescent mark stayed in Maya's eyes the way a bad word stayed in a quiet room. It was almost nothing, just a half-moon burn on black plastic, but she had seen marks like that before on old lawn-mower coils, on a space heater someone had rewired behind a trailer, on the generator her father once told her never to trust after midnight. Victor Hale stepped between her and the car as smoothly as a curtain being drawn. "Sweetheart," he said, his voice soft enough to sound kind to anyone not listening closely. "This engine costs more than the street you live on." A few people smiled again, relieved to be given permission. Maya looked past his pressed white shirt and silver badge, still studying the red wire. "Who worked on it last night?" she asked. The question was so plain that it took a moment to land. Charles Whitmore's eyes shifted, not toward Maya first, but toward Victor. Victor gave a short laugh through his nose. "Nobody worked on it last night. The vehicle was sealed." He said it quickly, cleanly, like a man wiping a fingerprint off glass before anyone noticed it was there. Tanya's mop bucket squeaked once as it rolled half an inch beneath her hand. "Maya," she whispered, but her voice had changed. It was not only fear now. It was recognition, the way mothers know when their child has found a thorn in something soft. The rain tapped lightly against the high windows above the garage. Somewhere near the investor table, a spoon touched the side of a paper coffee cup with a tiny, bright sound. Maya glanced down at the floor beside the Phantom X. The lab floor had been polished that morning, because Tanya had polished it. Maya knew the difference between clean concrete and disturbed dust. Near the rear tire, just outside the marked line where only engineers were supposed to stand, was a faint powdery smear, pale gray against the white floor. Not oil. Not dust from shoes. Dry chemical powder, the kind sprayed from a fire extinguisher when someone got scared and tried to erase what had almost happened. That wasn't there when my mom cleaned, Maya said. Tanya's fingers tightened around the mop handle. Victor did not look down. That was what Maya noticed. Everyone else looked at the floor. Victor looked at her. Children see things dramatically, he said, especially when they don't understand what they're seeing. Charles slid one hand into his pants pocket. He was not smiling now, but he was not believing either. His face had become still, the polished stillness of a man deciding whether a problem was real or merely inconvenient. You said the car was sealed, Charles said mildly. Victor nodded. Yes. What time? After final inspection. Around 11. Maya looked at him. The service lights were on after midnight. This time the silence was sharper. Tanya closed her eyes for 1 second, as if the sentence had stepped into traffic. Charles turned his head just slightly. How would you know that? Maya lifted the pharmacy bag against her chest. My mom forgot her bus card. I brought it to the side door. The lights were on inside. Victor's smile thinned. A child outside in the rain can mistake reflections for lights. Maya did not argue. She reached into the front pocket of her hoodie and pulled out a folded receipt, damp at the edges. The vending machine by the service door prints the time, she said. I bought her crackers because she didn't eat dinner. Charles took the receipt before Victor could. The paper was small, wrinkled, almost silly in his expensive hand. But the time at the bottom was clear, 12:17 a.m. Charles stared at it, then at the sealed garage door, then at the pale smear near the tire. His voice stayed quiet. Victor, pull up the camera footage from midnight to 1. Victor's expression did not break. He simply turned to a technician and said, Of course. But Maya saw his thumb press twice against the side of his wedding ring, a nervous motion hidden inside a normal one. The technician opened the security system on a wall monitor. The footage jumped from 12:09 to 12:31. 22 minutes were gone. And in that missing space, the garage suddenly felt much colder. The missing 22 minutes sat on the wall monitor like a locked door. Nobody moved for a moment. The rain continued tapping high above them, soft and steady, and the Phantom X stood beneath the lights with its rear panels open, silent now, almost innocent. Charles Whitmore looked at the blank jump in the footage without changing his face. Run it again, he said. The technician swallowed and dragged the cursor back. 12:09 a.m. empty garage. Phantom X sealed. Service lights low. Then a digital blink, too clean to be a glitch, and suddenly it was 12:31 a.m. The service lights were brighter. The rear platform was still empty. The car looked untouched. Victor Hale let out a careful breath. Archive corruption, he said. It happens when the backup server compresses overnight footage. He spoke to Charles, not the room, and not once did he look at the screen for more than a second. Maya noticed that too. She also noticed the technician's hand hovering over the mouse, afraid to touch anything until someone more powerful gave him permission. Charles turned to Maya. You said you were here at 12:17. His voice stayed calm, but the edge had changed. It was not mockery anymore. It was measurement. Maya nodded. Outside the service door. And you saw the lights? Yes, sir. Victor folded his hands in front of him. A wet glass door can reflect passing headlights. Children mistake motion for activity. Maya reached into the pharmacy bag, beneath the orange prescription bottle and the folded crackers receipt. For a second Tanya whispered, Don't. Not because Maya was wrong, but because she was afraid truth had a cost poor people always paid first. Maya pulled out a small paper wristband, the kind from a clinic, white with blue letters, creased from being held too long. "My mom had a doctor appointment yesterday," she said. "She gave me this because the bus card was inside her coat pocket and she was rushing." Charles looked at the wristband. Tanya's name was printed on it, along with the discharge time. 11:48 p.m. Maya spoke carefully. "We got off the bus at 12:11. I came here at 12:17. The guard at the side door told me no visitors. Then someone inside said, 'Just kill the overheads and close it up.'" Victor's jaw moved once. "Not much. Just enough." "Inside?" Charles asked. Maya nodded. A man's voice. Victor gave a small laugh, but it arrived too late. This is becoming ridiculous. Now she heard voices through reinforced glass. Maya looked at him. The service speaker was on. The technician's eyes flicked toward a black intercom box near the side door. Charles saw it. Victor saw Charles see it. "Who was assigned side door security last night?" Charles asked. The technician checked a log on his tablet. "Marcus Reed. But his keycard shows he left at 11:58. Maya pointed at the screen. "Then why is there a coffee cup by the service door at 12:31? The technician zoomed in. On the floor beside the door, barely visible in the recovered frame, sat a white paper cup with a green logo and 2 brown fingerprints near the lid. Charles took 1 step closer to the monitor. The room seemed to lean with him. Victor's hand went to his pocket, then stopped halfway. Maya's voice came softer. "Mr. Reed drinks black coffee from the vending machine. That cup is from the cafe across the street. They close at midnight." Charles did not look away from the screen. Zoom in on the cup. The image sharpened just enough to show black marker on the side. A name written by a cashier in hurried letters. It did not say Marcus. Said Victor. Victor's name on the coffee cup did not make anyone shout. It did something worse. It made the room polite. The kind of polite that arrived when rich people decided a dangerous thing should be handled without witnesses. Eleanor Price, Charles Whitmore's general counsel, stepped forward in a navy suit so smooth it seemed untouched by the rain, and placed one hand lightly on the edge of the black glass table. "Charles," she said, quiet enough to sound protective. "We need to pause this conversation before it becomes a liability." Her eyes moved to Maya, then to Tanya, then to the security guard by the service entrance. Not cruel, not angry, just assessing where the smallest people stood. Victor straightened his cuffs. "Exactly. A mislabeled coffee cup and a child's memory are not evidence. We have investors in the next room, press arriving in 20 minutes, and a vehicle launch that cannot be held hostage by speculation." The word hostage landed softly, but Maya felt it turn every face toward her. Tanya stepped closer to her daughter, the pharmacy bag crinkling between them. Charles saw it, the small defensive movement of a mother trying to make herself a wall, but his attention was still divided between the monitor, Victor, Eleanor, and the contract waiting for his signature. Eleanor turned to Maya with a measured smile. "Maya, is it? You've been very observant. But this is a restricted technical environment. Adults will take it from here." Maya did not answer. A security officer opened the side gate with a soft beep. Not pushing, not grabbing, simply creating the path out as if obedience had already been agreed upon. "Ms. Brooks," Eleanor said to Tanya, "your employment contractor will be contacted separately. For now, it's best if you and your daughter leave the floor." Tanya's face tightened. She knew what separately meant. It meant no schedule next week. It meant missed rent. It meant a phone call that never came. Maya looked at the open gate, then at the Phantom X, then at Victor's clean shoes. There, caught in the tread of his right sole, was a tiny red plastic shaving, curled like a sliver from a zip tie. Her fingers tightened around her father's burned notebook inside her hoodie pocket. The coffee machine in the corner hissed, dropping the last bitter stream into a paper cup no one would drink. For 1 second, the sound was almost ordinary. Then Maya spoke. "If adults were taking care of it," she said, "the wire wouldn't still be wrong." The garage went still again. Charles looked at her then, really looked, Not at the hoodie or the torn sneakers or the visitor sticker, but at the hand she kept pressed over something hidden against her chest. Victor gave a patient sigh and turned to the technician. Reset the diagnostic display. We are proceeding. He smiled at Charles as if the matter had been neatly folded away. But when Victor stepped back from the monitor, the red plastic shaving fell from his shoe and landed on the white floor beside Maya's sneaker. The red shaving was so small that, for a second, nobody understood why Maya bent down. She picked it up with 2 fingers, careful not to crush it, and held it against the white light. It was the same color as the thin wire inside the Phantom X, not bright like a toy, but deep red, industrial, the kind used in engine harness tags. Victor's smile stayed in place, but it lost its warmth. That could have come from anywhere, he said. This is a fabrication floor. Maya looked at the tiny curl of plastic in her palm. Then why is it warm? No one spoke. Charles stepped closer. Maya did not hand it to him right away. She closed her fingers around it and pressed her fist to her chest, where the burned notebook was hidden under her hoodie. My dad said small parts tell the truth after big people stop talking, she said. The words were quiet, but they moved through the garage like cold air under a door. Tanya touched Maya's shoulder, not to stop her now, only to steady herself. Charles looked at the girl's clenched hand, then at Victor's right shoe, then at the open engine bay. Let me see the notebook, he said. Maya hesitated. Adults had taken things from her family before. Time cards that disappeared. Complaint forms that never came back. A final paycheck that got reprocessed until rent was late. She looked at her mother first. Tanya's eyes were wet but clear. Maya reached inside her hoodie and pulled out the old notebook. Its brown cover was blistered at one corner, the cardboard darkened by smoke, the edges swollen from years of being kept in a kitchen drawer near a leaky sink. She opened it herself, not letting anyone else flip through her father's pages. Near the middle, tucked between 2 diagrams, was an old phone. Not a smartphone, just a cracked black flip phone wrapped in a rubber band, with a piece of masking tape across the back that said Eli in faded blue ink. He used it to record engine sounds, Maya said, when something was wrong. Victor gave a small, exhausted laugh. Charles, we cannot seriously be entertaining a child's antique phone in the middle of a billion-dollar presentation. But Charles was no longer looking at Victor. He was looking at the phone. Something about it had struck a place in him that had not been touched in years. His brother Nathan had carried the same model during the W12 testing days, because smartphones were banned near the prototype rigs. Maya opened the phone with both thumbs. The hinge clicked, fragile and dry. The tiny screen glowed pale green. There were only 3 saved audio files. She selected the last one. For a moment, there was only static. Then an engine sound came through, rough, uneven, pulsing in a pattern that made Charles's face change. Not much. Just enough for Eleanor Price to notice. Just enough for Victor Hale to stop breathing for half a second. The recording crackled, and behind the engine noise, a man's tired voice said, Red Bridge is still wrong. Tell Hale before they bury this. Charles slowly turned his head toward Victor, and for the first time all morning, he did not ask Maya another question. Charles did not accuse Victor. He did not raise his voice. He only reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and took out his phone with the same calm precision he used when signing contracts. Eleanor, he said, still looking at Victor, make a clean copy of that audio file. Chain of custody. Now. Eleanor hesitated only a fraction of a second before her professionalism took over. Of course. Victor's expression relaxed, just slightly, because a lawyer's involvement could still mean containment. Containment was familiar. Containment was safe. Charles, he said, lowering his voice as though protecting him from embarrassment. You know how old recordings work. Static can sound like words if someone wants it badly enough. Charles nodded once, not in agreement, but as if saving the sentence for later. Then it will survive examination, he said. The rain thickened against the glass roof, turning the ceiling into a gray blur above the white lights. Somewhere near the investor table, an untouched spoon slid down the side of a paper cup and tapped the lid. One small sound, ordinary and lonely, and then the room tightened again. Charles turned to the technician. Open the archived W12 inspection folder. Victor's eyes moved. Not much, just a quick shift toward Eleanor's tablet. Maya saw it. Charles saw Maya see it. The technician typed with hands that had begun to sweat. A file tree appeared on the wall monitor. W12 thermal event, final report, witness notes, vendor logs, personnel review. Charles stared at the words thermal event. That was what the company had called the day Nathan died. Not crash, not fire, not failure. An event. A word clean enough to wash blood out of a boardroom. Open witness notes, Charles said. The folder loaded slowly. 3 statements appeared. None from Eli Brooks. Maya's face did not change, but her hand closed around the flip phone. My dad wrote one, she said. Victor turned to her gently. Your father may have believed he did. Grief confuses families. Tanya's breath caught, but Maya lifted her chin. We weren't confused. We were poor. Charles looked at her then. She was not asking for $5 million. She was not asking for a car or cameras or applause. She stood in a room built to make people like her feel temporary, holding a dead man's phone like it was heavier than the engine itself. What do you want, Maya? He asked quietly. She glanced at her mother's tired hands, still red from floor cleaner, then back at him. I want nobody to say my dad lied because it was cheaper than listening. Charles said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned back to the screen. Open personnel review. Victor took one step forward. That file contains private employee records. Charles did not look at him. My company. My brother. My file. The technician opened it. In the final line of the review, under cause attribution, Eli Brooks's name appeared beside the words unauthorized modification. Beneath it was an approval signature. Victor Hale. But beside Victor's signature was another note, almost hidden in gray text. Override requested by Chief Safety Officer after missing witness statement. Charles felt something inside him go still. He had spent 12 years believing a poor mechanic had touched the wrong part. Now, looking at the screen, he realized the wrong part had been the man he trusted to explain it. Charles let the words on the screen remain there long enough for everyone to read them, then reached past the technician and turned the monitor off. The sudden black glass reflected the garage back at itself. Victor's pale shirt, Eleanor's still posture, Tanya holding her breath, Maya with the old phone clutched in both hands, and Charles Whitmore standing very straight beneath the white lights. We are going to do a diagnostic reset, Charles said. Victor blinked. Now? Now. The word was quiet, but nobody mistook it for a suggestion. Charles turned to Maya. You said the wire reacts when it warms. Maya nodded once. Only if the bridge is still routed wrong. Can it be tested without starting the engine? She looked at the Phantom X, then at the technician's console. 3 seconds of auxiliary current. Not ignition. Victor's mouth tightened. Charles, this is absurd. We do not let children dictate testing protocol. Charles finally looked at him. Then consider it my protocol. No one smiled. The technician opened a diagnostic window, and a small green progress bar began crawling across the screen. In the corner, a camera light blinked red, recording the floor because Eleanor had quietly set her tablet upright against a stack of contracts. Victor noticed the light and then pretended not to. That was when Maya leaned toward Charles, not enough for anyone else to hear clearly, and whispered, Ask him where the second key card is. Charles did not react. Victor, he said mildly. Who had access to the bay after 11? No one authorized. That wasn't my question. The progress bar reached 30%. A phone vibrated on the black glass table, hard and fast, buzzing against the unsigned investment agreement. Nobody touched it. Victor glanced down before he could stop himself. Charles noticed the glance. Maya noticed the name on the screen before it dimmed. R. Malloy. She knew only because the letters were big and white, and because grown-ups always thought children did not read what was right in front of them. Charles rested one hand on the back of a chair. Did you use your key card last night? Victor gave a small, controlled laugh. I checked the perimeter before leaving. That is not unusual. At what time? Around 11. Your coffee cup was here after midnight. Someone else may have used it. With your name on it? Victor looked tired now, but not broken. Charles, you are building a conspiracy out of trash, static, and a child's imagination. Maya's hand tightened around the phone, but she did not speak. The progress bar reached 70%. The technician swallowed. Auxiliary current ready. Charles said. Not yet. He turned to Maya again. What did your father say about people who move wires? Maya looked down at the floor, at the red shaving still sealed in a small evidence bag Eleanor had given her. He said people who make honest mistakes try to fix them. She lifted her eyes to Victor. People who hide mistakes remember the wrong details. Charles nodded slowly, then asked Victor, almost gently, if no one touched the engine, why did you say the car was sealed at 11? Victor stared at him. Because it was. Charles pointed to the blank monitor. The missing footage starts at 12:09. The diagnostic console beeped, waiting. Outside, rainwater traced crooked lines down the glass walls. For the first time, Victor did not answer immediately. His hand drifted toward the door behind him, stopping just above the chrome handle. Charles saw it and said nothing. Maya looked from Victor's hand to Charles's face, and in that small silence, Victor Hale understood the thing that frightened him more than the camera, more than the file, more than the old phone. The little girl was no longer standing alone. Victor's hand stayed above the chrome handle, motionless, as if the door itself had become dangerous. The diagnostic console gave another soft beep. Charles did not look away from him. Run the auxiliary current, he said. The technician pressed one key. For 3 seconds, nothing happened except a low electric hum under the floor, the kind of sound most people would never notice. Maya noticed. She counted under her breath. 1, 2, 3. On the monitor, the thermal line jumped hard, then fell flat, exactly as she had said it would. A small orange warning blinked once and vanished. Victor opened his mouth, but Charles lifted one hand. Not high, not dramatically, just enough to stop him. Eleanor, Charles said, bring up the service robot archive. Victor frowned. The what? Maya turned toward the far corner of the garage, where a round gray floor-cleaning robot sat under a charging dock beside stacked microfiber pads. It was small, scuffed, and easy to ignore, the kind of machine rich people stepped around without ever thinking who maintained it. My mom's robot, Maya said. It maps the floor every night so it doesn't hit the cars. Tanya's eyes widened. Maya, I fixed its front camera last week, Maya said. It kept bumping into the yellow posts. Eleanor moved quickly now, connecting the maintenance tablet to the wall monitor. Victor's face did not collapse, but something behind his eyes went sharp. That archive is janitorial equipment, he said. It would not capture restricted engineering activity. Then it won't matter, Charles replied. The file list appeared. Night run. 11:55 p.m. to 12:42 a.m. A loading circle spun in the middle of the screen. For a moment, the whole room seemed to breathe around it. Richard Malloy's phone buzzed again on the table, but he did not reach for it. Victor did not look at the door anymore. He looked at the loading circle. The video opened low to the floor, moving slowly across polished concrete. The garage looked different from that height, enormous and hollow, full of shadows beneath expensive machines. At 12:13 a.m., the robot turned near the Phantom X. The service lights came on. A man entered the frame from the left, close enough that only his shoes showed at first. Black leather, right sole marked with a notch. Then the camera angle shifted as the robot avoided a tool cart, and the man's hand appeared under the open engine bay. A steel watch with a blue face flashed in the light. Victor's watch. No one spoke. The man clipped a red zip tie, moved the harness, routed the thin red bridge through the wrong port. Then he leaned close to the engine and made a call. The robot's microphone caught the voice thinly, but clearly enough. It will fail after ignition, not before, Victor's recorded voice said. Whitmore will look like he killed his own brother twice. Charles went completely still. The color drained from his face so slowly it seemed the room was taking it from him. He looked at the screen, then at the real Victor standing 10 feet away, then at Maya, who held her father's dead phone with both hands. His lips parted, but nothing came out. For 12 years, he had believed a poor mechanic's mistake had helped kill his brother. For 12 years, Tanya had scrubbed floors under the name of the company that buried her husband's warning. And that morning, Charles had laughed at the child who carried the truth back into his garage. Victor tried to speak. "Charles, that file could have been altered." Charles set the old flip phone, the red shaving, and the printed keycard log side by side on the black glass table. His hand was shaking now, but his voice was not. "Lock the doors," he said. Then, without looking away from Victor, he added, "Call my attorney." The doors locked with a soft electronic click, not loud enough to frighten anyone, but final enough to change the air. Victor Hale stood very still as two security officers moved beside him, and for the first time. That morning, his expensive calm had nowhere to go. Charles did not let the investors leave with rumors. He did not let Eleanor write a statement that hid the wound under corporate language. He walked to the front of the garage, stood beneath the Whitmore Motors emblem, and faced the board members, the engineers, the janitorial crew, and the cameras that had come to celebrate a machine. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. "This demonstration is cancelled," he said. A murmur moved through the room. Richard Malloy lowered his phone. Victor tried once more, quietly, to say Charles was making a mistake. Charles did not turn around. 12 years ago, he continued, my company blamed a mechanic named Eli Brooks for a failure he tried to prevent. Today, his daughter found the same danger in this car before any of us did. Tanya covered her mouth with one hand. Maya stood beside her, the old flip phone pressed against her chest, not smiling, not triumphant, only tired in the way children should never have to be tired. Charles placed the phone, the red shaving, the keycard log, and the service robot footage file on the table in front of Eleanor. "Preserve everything," he said. "Notify outside counsel. Notify the board. And notify federal investigators if this crosses into criminal sabotage." Victor's badge was removed before he left the garage. Not ripped away. Not dramatic. Just unclipped by security, placed in a plastic evidence bag, and carried past the same workers he had spent years looking through. The next hours did not heal anything quickly. They were cold hours of signatures, copied files, sworn statements, and phone calls made behind glass walls. But something changed before the sun went down. The contractor who had held Tanya's wages was terminated. Payroll was corrected for every cleaner on the night crew. Eleanor assigned an employment attorney to Tanya before anyone asked her to sign anything. Charles reopened the W-12 case before the board, this time with Eli Brooks's warning placed on the first page, not buried in a missing folder. 1 week later, Eli's name was removed from the cause report. 1 month later, Whitmore Motors announced an independent safety lab named for him, staffed not only by executives and engineers, but by mechanics, floor technicians, and protected whistleblowers whose warnings could no longer be erased by someone with a better title. Charles offered Tanya a settlement, yes, but he did not call it kindness. He called it a debt. He paid her medical bills, secured a safe apartment near Maya's school, and made sure a lawyer, not a publicity team, explained every document before Tanya touched a pen. For Maya, he created a youth engineering scholarship, but when he told her, she looked down at her shoes and asked, "Does that mean kids like me can touch the machines before something breaks?" Charles had no answer at first. That was how she knew he had heard her. That night, he came to their new apartment without cameras. The kitchen was small, bright, and warm. Rain tapped softly against the window. Tanya set 3 bowls of chicken soup on the table, and Maya placed her father's flip phone beside a framed photograph of Eli in his work shirt. His hands black with grease, his smile quiet and proud. Charles looked at the phone for a long time. "Your father warned us," he said. "You made us listen." Maya slid the bowl toward him, her voice barely above the sound of the rain. "Then don't stop listening when the room gets quiet." Charles lowered his eyes, unable to speak. while the old phone stayed on the table between them like proof that truth could survive power, and that the child everyone had laughed at had finally been heard.